I never get to see her. And we've known each other since we were 2. So, but, we were going to sleep on top of the houseboat, but I was still like having a heart attack because you scared me so bad. And then her mom made burgers and they tasted really, really bad. But
tasted really, really bad.
They did. You scared me though, Alan.
Ow!
You sounded like you were about to cry.
Oh, I was tired, and then earlier that day, I just was having a rough time.
You scared me
That
though.
stupid, why would you leave us by NF? Got me acting up.
Oh my gosh. That's not
No, because it could be my mom like that. So it got me acting up.
But why would Jennifer do that?
I was listening. No. Stop it, stupid.
I know you. Remember that one time I was singing that song like
I look at you like
you're just like oh whoops. That was funny. We were in the flat room. I miss Friday nights. Also, stupid topic nights are the stupidest time ever.
it's the time that I eat. And I eat a lot.
We can go to topic nights, but it's just at a really stupid, inconvenient time. I hope you miss.
If it's Father's Day,
Don't
that
hit
means
me.
that it's
I'll be a tomato. Don't hit me. I am a tomato. Oh, now you're playing baseball? What's happening? What sport are you playing? It's
Something that hippo.
I know, like every single sport is like you use something to hit a ball, and it's like.
No, what about boxing? MMA.
wrestling. What about wrestling?
Exactly. But don't bring up the WWE. That's all fake.
So I was with my best friend.
My best friend.
Stop.
My best friend.
I get to see her like once a year.
Same with my grandma, but I don't talk all about her.
My grandma I get to see once a year, but she's annoying, so I don't want to hang out with her, so I don't give a crap.
At least you have grandparents.
My great grandma is gonna be 95.
Oh, mine didn't live to 100.
I think mine lived
But
until
I put because I don't have a work phone number, but my friend does, so I put Alan's phone number in her phone, and then I called Alan, and I did what I told him I would do when I actually get a real phone number.
I'm like, I've seen this number
I sent
before.
him that picture of Genji, and then I said, "Did you like the picture of Genji?" And he said, "Me and Harmony were watching Peppa Pig remakes."
Alan, are you watching political videos in church again?
Maybe. 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 Just maybe.
Peppa Pig. We
Maybe.
were watching Peppa Pig.
I'll be
remakes.
like on YouTube
look
shows
at
at
this.
midnight,
Alan.
only political videos.
Alan,
Be like, yeah, so true.
That's what I tried to do last night.
She had so many weird pictures of Ursula. It was great. Also, sleeping on top of the houseboat was cool. I got my eyes dilated and I had these dope glasses that looked really weird. Also,
I don't think we have sour skills either.
I never have
Not
dog.
Harmony. What would you rather hear about, Harmony or Overwatch?
They're both horrible.
Never.
So I chose these.
But in these custom games.
Yeah, be nice to her.
Hey.
I don't know.
Thank you, mommy.
The school year though.
Is that cow for free?
I live in Orville, so
It's not for sale.
I'm saying like what town?
Uh-huh. The cow?
So I definitely.
Yeah, but I'm in Overwatch.
No, not you.
Bingo.
Is this your first time?
There's emotes that you can do. Most of them have six numbers, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Wow.
People
Thank
sitting
you,
around a
Mommy.
campfire.
Well, you don't know if it's for you or her yet. Here's the problem with sour Skittles.
I don't like the fact that we did something.
You got a problem with Skittles and regular
Sound
Skittles.
like something. The song is cool.
Oh, wait. Which one?
Who's cow?
alongside
That's my motivation
and hit it
today.
before it stops.
That's my motivation on being
Are
Thursday.
you like?
Ice cream Thursday.
So yeah, you don't want to be on one side. Make sure you're on one short side. You're going around, but just make sure you're
Oh my.
fully on the short side. Like this. Okay, so grab the white
What?
ball and hit it before it stops.
What? What?
You give me dollars.
I'm sorry?
I gave him.
What am I saying?
And stop.
I gave my buddy.
So if it stops, that's a letter for you. So if it spells CRUD, then you're out.
My mom, her volume is always up, so when we're in public and she gets an ad, it's like, bro.
See, I always forget, like in work.
Oh, and also
I don't have to have my
I
volume
forget,
up.
forgetting that my
Oh, sorry.
ringtone was
It's
out.
just one full.
So I kept getting texts from Zoe and it was sounding like talking.
I'm just
Hey, yo,
this
this
is
one
You
year.
can run, you can grab it, and keep going and try and hit it before it stops. But not from the side. Not from the side. It has to be one of the short.
How well do you know me?
Okay, starting now.
Exactly.
The 20th.
Where's that?
Hit it. Hit it.
Yeah.
Before it stops going.
That's when Jack was born. My boyfriend.
But don't hit it
That's
from the long side.
Willow, God, it's not Willow.
It's a H to remember.
Gravy.
You get the hang of it, but it's locked up.
What the frick?
Carmel, pepper you.
Oh, okay.
It's the marijuana week. For a game.
Get it. Make sure you get to one of the short sides.
That's fun.
Short.
You didn't even acknowledge the photo of my.
Oh, I like
No, do you know
So
that?
that's the letter for Zach.
You're gonna get shot.
What's this? Wait, Jake Paul's in that thing?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put this over here.
Your humor is like
Me and
motivating.
Archie were walking past the
It's doing that thing where it's going. Dad said that I was the first one to make my dad, so I win.
Well, I'm the last one to make him a dad, so that's gonna be
Yeah, but he already was.
The picture for the music video of the
So what are the next songs on the line? I'm gonna go Rose Be Like and then Girl.
Oh yeah, homeschoolers be like, and then women be like, and then kids be like,
I'm gonna do kids these days.
and then Micah be like,
I was gonna do Angel We Like, cause it's gonna be so
Overwatch be
stupid.
like,
I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, I called one of my friends. No, I get a call just the other day, and they're like, what's harder, to be a man or be a woman? I said, be a man.
No,
And then hold on.
no,
Hold on.
no,
So he
no,
said, why is all horrible?
break,
No. Like all the things that women have to go through, men have to deal with women. And then blah, blah.
what? Women, at least you don't have to end up giving birth one day.
Exactly.
Wow.
I have a point.
It's like, what's worse, not having a car or having a car and it possibly having engine failure? Ugh.
Wait, can I open
I'd
it?
rather just
Help.
never drive.
Help. I'll give you one if you help.
That was my thing, but then I caved in.
so easy. Are you so weak or what?
I suck bird.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
bro. I've only been here for like 10 minutes. It says it once.
You're gonna feel something.
So that's just a reason.
Have you guys all met Holly?
I'm at Holly.
You should be Holly.
Exactly. Be a nice person.
I'm not a nice person.
I wasn't toxic.
Yeah, you're be a nice person.
And this is Hannah. Have you met Hannah? You should come meet Hannah. That's Holly. We need to play a game. What game should we play?
You are becoming great.
I know, Grace will come in and literally hand me like a bag full of quarters and be like, how many ice cream should I get? We do have ice cream.
We do. I think it's like an unopened box of ice cream.
We have a whole bottle, how much?
Grab it.
$20.
Bro,
Okay, now we
all we
both
talk
here.
about being good be like, it's so annoying.
Cut probably under your.
Alan, you mean like slowly but surely over the next year?
Why isn't it singing? So I have CRU, so it's my last.
You have a like a weird
The only true part of the whole song is the dancing part, and that's all about it.
Singing blue and
I heard there's a music video.
What? It's a baby! Kill it.
Oh.
That's not that. That's not funny anymore.
Goodness.
This one's
I
like.
don't know why I laughed. That's
That
horrible.
guy. That guy.
She just starts.
5, 10, 15, 16, 17.
Short side.
Okay, so that's what it is. We both have a U now.
It's almost.
It's not open.
This reminds me of poker night.
Sour candy.
My God.
Oh my. Sour
All right,
candy.
everybody.
Cindy.
Time to find a chair. Time to play a game.
Work out.
Oh, bro.
Come on down.
I forgot.
Everybody at the bar, come find a seat.
That's all it
Win
is.
to win.
Alan, I can bring you.
Okay, thank you. I think I can. Win to win.
Okay,
Win
and
to win.
take some chairs out of the stack.
Win to win,
Win
Alan.
to win.
phones.
Maybe
What?
I'm beginning
need
to.
our
No, phones can go in these
Alan,
phone
I'm beginning
buckets.
to think Lulu doesn't have dyslexia and you do.
Oh,
What do you
wow.
mean?
Wait, Lulu doesn't have dyslexia?
No, I was being.
Wait,
Lulu
Lulu
has
has dyslexia?
I'm confused.
Wait, what?
What?
Alan's like, is she gonna die?
No,
She got doc.
Wait, Lulu has dyslexia?
There's like two people
This is same thing as Danielle.
Lulu does not.
I can't tell what you're saying, Kira, because there's children in
Does
here.
not.
Oh, right.
Say she
1,
does
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, guys,
Jokingly.
this is gonna be a hard game. You ready? We're gonna play more than once.
Should I say how
More than once. I
Bro, Logan, should I
Logan, you want to play?
Can
If we start out with an even number, everyone can actually survive round one. If we start with an odd number, slow folks just immediately die. So,
How many people are there? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Should I show you how
so if you don't play, someone's going out round
Is it
one.
ice cream, Bubby?
So what you're saying is, it'll be more interesting if I
You should play. You should play.
Are there any scorekeeping positions?
There is no scorekeeping position.
So why am I even
It's purely survival.
Why am I even here?
Okay. Here's how the game works. It's very, very simple. It's an elimination game. 2 of you will be eliminated each round.
Okay, can I be
Oh,
eliminated
musical
first?
chairs.
If you don't make the 3-second cut. So after I see the first person twin, I'm gonna count to 3.
Medusa.
And if you're not twinned,
Two
you're
people are
out.
eliminated.
That's it. Okay. All right. So timer is 3 seconds. Last set of twins standings wins.
What's the categorization?
Does that make sense? So you just have to find someone who matches you in the given category, whatever the category that comes up on screen is. Does that make sense? So you talk to people, you look at people. That's how you figure out if you're twins. Some stuff is going to be appearance based, so you can just look at them and tell if they're the same as you in that particular category of appearance. Some stuff you're going to have to ask questions.
What if
You're not
both
going to know from looking at them if you're the twin in some of these categories. Okay? Here we go. First category, stand up. Only sit down from this point on if you've lost and you're a loser. All right, category 1, birth month.
June? Anyone June?
January.
Boom, you got twins. All right, talk. Go. Find the humans.
January.
May.
3,
When are you born?
2, 1. Oh my gosh, did I just lose 4 people?
You can't start out with something as broad as that.
What's your birth month?
May. July. April. December.
Oh, you guys have no chance. You were doomed from the start. Okay, this is it. Round 1 is going to go to one of these 2 sets of twins or a different mixture of twins because you never know. The next category might make you switch.
Ready,
You guys ready?
ready?
It could be any of the other 3 people. You don't know who you got a twin with. Hand size. Go.
What?
I feel uncomfortable.
This isn't fair. I should not be allowed to play this anymore.
Totally,
Good job, they win.
totally.
All right, that is 1 point for each of you. You each have 1 point. Everybody
You
stand
see what
back up.
happens?
Round
when
2.
we're twinning?
I don't
Ready?
know.
Here we
you
go.
know.
Round
I
2.
lose 'cause my
And eye color. Go.
Brown.
Who has hazel eyes?
brown.
Guys, you're cheating.
No, we're not.
Micah, he's already taken.
You're right. Thank you, Daniel. I am
Eyes
taken.
hazel.
No, mine are brown. Yours are like.
But
Yours are
how
like-
is it?
Who's brown?
No, yours are like.
Yours are almost black. That's not a
Squirrel
color for
feet.
eyes.
Hazelnut.
They must have a color.
Everyone's already
It'll be like a genetic anomaly.
What can I say? It tastes good. I think
They're dark
Oh.
brown.
You just
Okay.
look into his eyes and you just like start hovering.
Anyone got brown? He's got brown. You can
Get
pair up real quick.
everything. I have brown.
Who has like
Okay,
green?
there we go. We got a
Who has
pair.
like
Out of the 4 left, what do you guys have?
I have greenish.
You have brown? Blue? Anyone else got blue? Blue?
Micah has blue.
Micah has blue. You could pair. You could twin with Micah.
And Micah's
And then the
blue.
last 2 left. I think you're out unless you guys have matching eyes.
What color are your eyes?
Does she not know? I can't hear the answer.
open your eyes.
No.
Oh my god. Open your eyes.
Okay. Well then, good job. You're still in, and you 2 are out.
Not imagine.
No, you're in. You're in. Okay. Ready? Here we go. Next category. Arm length. You must find someone with the same length arms. Line up your shoulders and your middle finger. How are you guys the same? This
I
doesn't
don't
make
know,
any
it's
sense.
scary.
And you both
Do you
wear
guys have the same
glasses.
length arms?
You guys are both really weird. You guys are both short.
What? How
mean,
am I
Just gotta- just
weird?
gotta
I
touch
take
your
that
shoulders.
as
There you go.
offense.
How? You guys are even the same height. Okay,
I
this is
don't know.
weird. All right, you guys have all survived. Next category, shoe size.
What?
11 and a
Shoe
half.
size. You gotta just put your shoes side by side because guy and girl shoes don't number the same.
Shoot.
Like a girl's 8 and a guy's 8 are not the same
I'm
thing.
like a 9 or an 8, I think, but I'm
Micah,
out.
you, what are you? What are you?
But these are
What
men's.
number?
These are
Yeah,
men's.
you guys are both
shoes.
girls 8. Okay, that
number
works.
are you?
No.
These are men's.
Alan, she's out.
I'm like
9 or 8.
oh, I'm
Threes.
like 9s or 8. Yeah.
Nice. All right, next up, phone.
I'm done.
Does anyone have the same phone?
iPhone 10.
I'm out.
Anyone have an iPhone 10?
I'm Logan's feet obviously.
iPhone 10X. Anyone have an
But he
iPhone
also
10?
wears big.
I'll take iPhone Android. How
Yeah,
about
but I'm
that?
11 and a half.
Does anyone have an iPhone?
I have
Well,
Samsung.
I don't know. Come look.
Is
She
it
has an
exact
iPhone, right?
model or?
There you go. Twinning.
Does it-
Okay, Elliot, what do you got?
It was safe.
You got a Gab phone? What's that?
I don't know.
Is it an Android?
Probably not.
Probably. No one even knows anymore. No one else? Everyone else
It
is
just
dead?
has a screen.
Okay, we have a
and it
winner.
does
Good job.
that.
You guys each have 1 more point, so that means Alan, you're 2.
Oh, here's 2.
All right, guys.
I'm actually-
Everyone stand. The last
Like 2
category.
years old.
Or the last round. Round 3. Someone's got to tie with Alan or he wins. Here we go. School. Who goes to what school?
Corview.
See again. This is
Homeschooling
weird.
counts.
I'm
Homeschooling counts.
independently
Graduated.
homeschooled.
This
Counts?
doesn't-
Well,
That
you're gonna
doesn't
lose
work.
then.
I'm independently homeschooled. I don't
That's
go to the same.
homeschool
Wait,
is gonna
Micah,
be a
are
school.
you
Okay.
independent?
So Lee and Alan are twins.
There you go. Boom. Easy
Yeah.
peasy. What school are you
Lee and Alan are.
Daniel, are you in?
But like,
We
I
got a
don't-
Marsh over here. Anyone else Marsh?
I'm homeschooled.
What happened?
You
Not
know.
independent, but homeschooled.
I'm independently, but that still is.
Back in
It's
I'm
my
not
homeschool.
independent.
Alan, are you
Yeah,
leaving
but-
her for the independent?
I'm not
of her
independent.
homeschool?
But
Are
it's
you
still
core?
homeschooled.
No.
Oh no, that's right. You that program your mom was telling us about.
Yeah.
What's it
Oh,
called?
here.
South Sutter?
South Sutter. So that's technically a charter school, yes?
Yeah, I'm a charter school.
Oh, but it's a different charter school.
Oh.
So I think you guys are both out. So Micah, are you homeschooled or core?
Not
Homeschooled?
really, just
So you guys are the last twins. What do you do? You're in Bidwell? Oh, okay, I think. Are you in Bidwell?
Chico Jr.
Oh, dang. Okay. Final 2 points. Go to Kira and Micah.
That's good.
So what are the point totals? Is it 1,
2.
2,
1, 1, 2.
1. So Alan wins. Congratulations, Alan.
Alan cheated.
What does Alan do?
What do I do?
You get a little hat with one of those little spinny propellers on it. So you can pick it up at the dollar store anytime later today. All right, here we go.
Bring money.
Grab a Bible off the shelf if you haven't already, and open it up to the book of 1 Samuel.
Chapter.
And we'll all be twinning in
43.
that.
23, you got it! Alan is on his A game.
I haven't been here for a long time. That's not nice.
Did you miss a bunch of chapters?
Alan.
I have no idea.
Well, lucky for you, we're going to recap the last 2.
Yeah.
All I ever do is play Overwatch now.
Oh, we get it.
Oh, I did this really good virtual harmony. We get it. I get
Oh
it.
my
Whoa, what is that?
Samuel first.
Torch.
Chapter 23.
Wait, what? Is that the chapter?
Yes.
My goodness.
Are you kidding me?
Is it like in camp, like fire and water?
Who's the best at Fortnite?
No, it's more weird than that. It's Indiana Jones.
Think about as
mixed with
sacrilegious
Survivor.
as you can get.
The torch element comes in because the study is going to focus on Elijah versus the prophets.
Elijah good? Elijah go on?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't want to don't.
Go ahead.
No,
I think how
you were staring at it every word that I moved.
Yeah.
thought you were gonna like
That's
use
Just
okay.
like
it to
general
be- I don't want it.
tiki.
It's just
temple.
surviving in the jungle.
I
Not
don't
being
want
They're,
it.
it's really
Stop.
strange. They're making the theme about the bad guys of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I tell you what the
So it's about how the bad guys go.
camp?
But
doing that, I was gonna say something maybe.
Mike,
You're gonna say something.
remember the open mic for camp last year?
Yeah.
You gotta do that again. We gotta like hype you up.
Yeah.
It's finally Micah, he's coming back. So you stand up and you're like,
Multiple songs memorized. I don't really get there on my own.
Logan, you know how we do that, right?
I was gonna sing a song by
Logan, you know how we do that, right?
hmm?
You know how we do the hyping, right?
Because also it'll be even
All
better
through
because
camp,
Daniel
our
and Daniel or
guys
Emily can
talk about how good
Hey,
it
I
is.
can rap.
And every time anyone
Yeah,
asks
I was
Micah to
gonna
do
sing
it,
an F
he
song.
says, nah, I'm saying
Don't do it, how could you?
Yeah, so you
And
can't.
then like, so Micah never talks up what he's gonna do.
No,
He
but
never
the
talks about
thing
it.
is, the
But
whole
we-
act was Micah
No,
being
no.
Micah.
Stop
Happy.
talking. We're like, it was the most amazing thing. It changed my life.
From
Oh,
4 kids like just
Hey, you
passed
okay?
out.
yeah, it's going
Okay,
back
dude,
in my nose.
And one of the kids just jumped in the
You're a
lake and
tomato,
felt just so
I'm a
moved
tomato,
by your
potato, tomato,
strong act of heroism.
Yeah, and I also was gonna do hiking lessons.
No, I wasn't
I
gonna do
forgot
like
about that.
Or
a different
Oh
song.
my god.
or I was gonna take a soda.
So many people
Let's
learn
show
so many
everyone
great
how to
things.
make a duck
with
call
Micah
like
lessons.
this.
Think about actually taking the mic.
Or do
this
the
time,
thing that Gavin
Hmm?
singing out Elsa or something.
Elsa? Yeah.
No, yeah, Patrick's brother didn't make the call.
What?
How he would bend the can and then make the call noise. Why won't you?
Is that a talent though?
Yeah,
is it?
Yes, I can make a duck call out of this. I'll even show you. Watch. Okay.
Oh no.
I can make a
How long
duck
is it
call
gonna
by
take? Well, we're gonna be
simply
here for 3
giving it
hours.
hands.
Yeah, I was like, how long is it gonna take?
No.
Not that long. So you take the top off, that opens it, right?
Yep, yep.
Take it on here, right?
Yep, you bend it.
You bend it 90 degrees, right?
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Duck, 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 duck. Exactly. Insane.
I
Close
don't
it up.
like you.
Oh, Alan, I don't even know what to do with you. I don't even know.
And even then I don't.
Alrighty, guys. Anyone find the page number yet? 1 Samuel chapter 23.
I don't know what to do.
It is going to be page 247. Nope, sorry, 248.
Get it right.
I got it there.
I don't like that we're still
Page
got
248.
screen.
I got there.
You don't
You don't
like
like
the
this? You don't like this David and Goliath, angry Goliath picture? You can not like it. I'm just curious.
I think it's.
You're
I
allowed
think
to.
It
I
deserves
think-
to die.
It's a good story. It's just we've been on it for years.
Well, it's not been years, but
Well,
What do you
can
mean?
do
It
your
feels
eye
like
for
years.
the
years,
picture
so
is the picture. It's not the story. We're not still talking about David and Goliath.
It's
That's
just a
just-
different picture.
That's just the most notable story in the book of 1 Samuel. And
Still
it's
talking
and it's just my favorite piece of art that I could find for any of the stories in 1
I
Samuel.
think it
That's
should
all.
be a picture
You-
of him drooling down his beard.
When he's crazy
Yes.
and scratching at
And
doors.
scratching
I
the-
forgot
yeah,
to do
scratching the
that.
doors and drooling.
Too bad I wasn't there on Sunday. I was like, I'm gonna do it. and
Okay,
then
we're
I
actually going to
failed
recap that far back, so we can mention that. So 1 Samuel, obviously, book in the Old Testament. It's pretty far back in the Old Testament, but chronologically, it's right in the middle of the Old Testament timeline. Here in chapter 23, this will be about 1011 BC. It's right after last week. Not much time has passed. Samuel, the prophet who writes the book, he's actually not in today's chapter, but he'd be about 89. Saul, who will be in this chapter, he's the king who wants David dead. He's going to be 71. Jonathan, not in this chapter. He's 56. He is the son of the king. David is the main character right now, even though he's not the title of the book. And he is 29. And he is on the run from King Saul. So he's been living in various places to stay on the run, to stay alive, which is where the drooling story comes from. So here we go. This is like a timeline map. You can find in little boxes, the little 1s and 2s and 3s, to keep you going in order. So anyways, back in chapter 21, this is 2 weeks ago. Chapter 21, 2 weeks ago, we saw David flee to go see the prophet Samuel in Ramah. We saw David travel to Nob and receive Goliath's sword from one of the priests, and also ate some sacred bread. And then we saw David go to Adullam via Gath. So he stops up at Gath, chills there, which is enemy territory. This is where the Philistines were. And he chills with them and pretends to be crazy. And then he goes to Adullam, and people start finding him that aren't Saul, that don't want him dead. Just people who want to join him, outcasts. And it was everyone from, yeah, I hate Saul too, to, I owe some guy some money and I don't want to pay it. So he had all kinds of people coming to find him that just wanted to leave society and do something else. And eventually he had like 400 guys with him. Then last week in chapter 22, we saw him meet up with his parents who thought, you know, Saul wants you dead. He knows we love you and that you love us. He might try and take us to draw you out. So David hides them over the border here in Mizpeh, which is in Moab, a country that is not where Saul is king. So over here, the parents of David get to hide out. David then crosses back over, and he has this old abandoned fortress he hangs out in called the Stronghold. And that's kind of where we left off last time, was David just chilling at the Stronghold for a while. It was safer than the other places he'd been. So that's last week. Now we move into chapter 23 this week. Read with me the first 4 verses. One day, news came to David that the Philistines were at Keilah, stealing grain from the threshing floors. David asked the Lord, should I go and attack them? Yes, go and save Keilah, the Lord told him. But David's men said, we're afraid here, even here in Judah. We certainly don't want to go to Keilah to fight the whole Philistine army. So David asked the Lord again, and again the Lord replied, go down to Keilah, for I will help you conquer the Philistines. So if you're not clear, Keilah's over here, and this is slightly contested territory. This is between the main portion of Israel and the main portion of Philistia. So the Philistines have an easier time attacking here. The main army isn't in the way. Now, this is an interesting tactic. We actually see this from several of Israel's enemies over the years, like over the course of several hundred years. People keep using this strategy. If they live over the border from you, and they don't like you, and they don't want to go into all-out war today, but they do want to weaken you as a nation, and they do want to pester you because they just hate you. They don't go in and kill an entire city. They don't go in and burn something to the ground. They go in when the farmers have finished the harvest and they've brought their grain in and they're going to process the grain. So they're either going to dry and store it or they're going to mill it down into flour. They're doing the last job from harvest to this point. And the soldiers go in, surround that farmer's mill, and basically at sword point make the farmer finish the job, and they walk off with all the food. So now what they've done is they've weakened your nation while strengthening their nation, and they got something for free that should have cost them an entire year's labor. So they just grow richer and richer. You get poorer and poorer. You starve. That's their strategy. It also means that specifically what they're weakening is the border. Because they're not attacking back here, like, far away from their cities. They're attacking the border. So now the border specifically is getting weaker and weaker, which means they could grow slowly. They can just slowly wait till, all the farmers in this little area are all poor and they all have to move in with someone else and they all have to leave the area and they go, oh, look at that, it's abandoned. Just kind of mosey on in there, replant a few of the crops, keep up the orchards and just kind of slowly take the land and never have to burn it down, never have to raise it, never have to, do any of the hard stuff. They just get to have this land that's been cared for granted to them because everyone who's living there is starving to death. It's a terrible strategy in terms of what it does because it puts the fight on the average person, not on the army. But it's also a brilliant strategy in that it never really leaves your soldiers at risk. They're not ever fighting armed men. They're going and taking like one farm at a time. It's really low risk. So yeah, morally terrible, tactically genius. But that's what the Philistines are up to right now. So David wants to put a stop to this. Verse 5. So David and his men went to Keilah. They slaughtered the Philistines and took all their livestock and rescued the people of Keilah. Now when Abiathar, son of Ahimelech, fled to David at Keilah, he brought the ephod with him. Saul soon learned that David was at Keilah. Good, he exclaimed. We've got him now. So David frequently has more and more people defect to him, like from the main society, from the king's side of society. And one of the people we see here is a priest. And so David ends up with a priest amongst his ranks of ragtag whoever's. And at a time when a bunch of priests have just been killed by Saul's guys, this is a big deal. It means that a large portion of the spiritual leadership in the country is now roving with David. Think about that for a second, what that does for the rest of the country. Because Saul obviously doesn't care. Saul is not trying to follow the Lord anymore. So to Saul, it doesn't matter if I have, 100 priests or one priest, 9 or none. It doesn't matter to Saul. He's not trying to follow the Lord. But what does that do for the rest of the country? What is the rest of the country experiencing now? No ideas? Yeah?
No religion.
Religion's shrinking. The ability to go and worship God, the ability to go ask God a question, the ability to offer up a sacrifice to the Lord, it's diminishing as the priests are killed by Saul or defect to David. Now it's harder and harder to find one. Now, the priests were supposed to be spread out. They're supposed to be in several locations so you could go find one in several places. But in this little neck of the woods, 100% of the priests are with David. So if you live in this area and you want to honestly go and seek the Lord, you have to leave. You have to travel outside that part of the country to go find somewhere to worship the Lord, ask the Lord a question, sacrifice to the Lord. I don't know if that really sinks in for you guys, but imagine if there just suddenly wasn't a church in Chico. Not one. Just 0
There's
churches.
thousands in Paradise.
Well, that's true, but this is a much larger area than one town, so you'd have to count, Paradise, Orville, Orland, Durham, Yuba, Marysville. Just keep going. Like, it's a pretty big circle. We're talking about somewhere in the order of, 10 to 20 cities, no churches. That's the effective result of this.
Build one.
You could build one, that's true. But you weren't allowed to be a priest in those days unless you came from a specific family, and that's what Saul killed, was the entire bloodline in this portion of the country. The whole bloodline. The women, the children, all of them. Now, he did it through a servant, so I don't want you to get the idea he went and killed all the priests. Saul didn't do that with his own hand, but he ordered it done. Which is, as a king, it's just as bad. You can't get out of your crimes by saying, well, my soldiers did it. Well, yeah, but who ordered the soldiers? So yeah, it's at Saul's request. So David has 100% of the priests in this little neck of the woods. That really changes things for everyone else. Everyone else is feeling that. And again, it's not bad that the priest went and hung with David. It's probably good. David's the anointed next king of Israel. As soon as Saul dies, David's supposed to be king. And Saul's clearly working against God's purposes at this point. So being a priest and risking your life to go be with Saul is kind of a death sentence. So it makes sense. All right, keep going. I think we already read verse 7. Go on to verse 8. So Saul mobilized his entire army to march to Keilah and besiege David and his men.
He said tequila. I was waiting for the word "to" in Keilah to be right next to it. I knew it would happen somewhere.
Oh, Logan. So David rescues a town from the enemy, once again showing his true colors, once again showing he is not anti-Saul. He is not anti-Israel. He is not against God's purposes. He is for God's people. And his reward for saving all these Israelites from death, from starvation, is to just be hunted yet more by the king. That's it. You would think that would help to wake up Saul, right? Like, Saul's at Keilah. Why? What's he doing there? He just saved everyone from the Philistines. Sweet, let's go kill him. Like, you're king of the Israelites. You should be giving out medals to people who save your towns. You should be promoting generals that save your people, not killing them. But Saul is not in his right mind. He's been afflicted by demons. He's been depressed. He's operating in a state of paranoia. And so he keeps giving in to these feelings. He keeps giving in to these emotions. He keeps allowing these things to take hold of him. And so he's going to continue to make these terrible decisions. Verse 9, but David learned of Saul's plan and told Abiathar the priest to bring the ephod and ask the Lord what he should do. Now this is one of the things I love to see in any of the stories we read in the Bible, because often it doesn't happen. But when it happens, it is so cool. I'm in a tough spot. I don't know what to do. What should you do?
Trust the Lord.
Not just trust.
Pray about it.
Yes, you should talk to him.
We talked
You should
about
talk
this
to him
last
about
night.
it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you should trust in the Lord. I don't want to say it's a wrong answer. But what we're seeing here is not just the trust. We're seeing an extra step. We're seeing the prayer. And so often we see it in the Bible that humans, because the Bible's just accurate, the Bible's just truthful, humans are put in these tough situations by other human sin, and that person tries to make their best effort. That person does the most wise thing they can think of. That person does their best guess. That person tries to manipulate their way out of the situation, or lie their way out of the situation, or just run. Now, any one of those could be wrong, might be close to right. But if you haven't asked God, then you don't really know. You don't really know until you talk to him. What am I supposed to do to get out of this? How am I supposed to deal with this? It's not going to be lie. It's not going to be manipulate. It might be run, but it might be something else entirely. There's so many other options. So you've got to go to him and you've got to ask. So that's what David does. Verse 10, then David prayed, O Lord, God of Israel, I have heard that Saul is planning to come and destroy Keilah because I'm here. Will the leaders of Keilah betray me to him? And will Saul actually come as I have heard? O Lord, God of Israel, please tell me. And the Lord said he will come. Now before we read verse 12, you may have already glanced at it. I want you to set up the picture in your mind. David's inside the walls of a walled city. He is their current hero. He saved their lives. He saved their livelihood. And Saul's coming to him.
Wow.
If the people of Keilah are going to protect protect David, then it's a good place to be in a walled city, right? That's a great place to be. If the people of Keilah are going to turn on David, David would have to choose, walk out to certain death, or fight and probably kill the people I just risked my life to save. I don't like either of those options. I don't think David liked either of those options. He doesn't want to die, but he certainly doesn't want to kill the people of Keilah. Like, those are the people he just risked his life to save. He wants them to live. So his prayer to God is, if I stay here, are they going to turn me over? It's a likely bet, right? The king's got the bigger army. The king's the big scary guy. The king could probably level that town if he, was patient enough. He took the time to do it. So if they stand up for David, they're probably all going to die. So David would understand. He's not going to hold it against them, I don't think. But he just needs to know, are they going to turn me over? Is this the place where I stand and fight, or is this the place I should leave behind me? It's an important question because there's so many times where God asks us, stand, fight, hold your ground, don't back down, stand up for the truth, stand up for what's right. But there's also a lot of times where God says, yeah, it's not going to work, just go. This would be a waste of your time, a waste of your resources, a waste of your effort, a waste of your life. Just get out of here. On Wednesday nights, we're doing Acts in our small group study. Some of you guys are here for Wednesdays, yeah? Okay.
Sometimes.
Paul is currently in our Acts study, Paul is currently in what? He's in
Harold.
That's the same thing as the week before. He got arrested, so he's in.
Too tired of all.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
You know? That's not an answer.
yeah.
No.
What?
Prison. He's in prison.
Oh.
Paul's in prison. Same as last week, same as the week before. Okay, so Paul's in
Wait.
prison.
What person?
That's what I
It doesn't matter. That wasn't the answer. The answer was prison. He's in prison.
1 out of the 50 he was in throughout his life.
He's in Caesarea. It's not important though.
Isn't it him?
Paul's in prison, but why is he in prison? Does anyone remember?
I don't know.
Acts, high 20s.
Okay,
in
I was
several
too
chapters
tired
in a
after
row.
All Out. Okay, that was stressful. That was really stressful.
Okay, so I'll lay it on you.
Stand there and did nothing.
Paul's on a missionary journey. He's away from home. He's headed back to Jerusalem, the capital city of Israel. And on his way back to Jerusalem, he gets multiple prophecies in a row that all say if you go to Jerusalem, you will get arrested. And some of the prophets finish up their prophecy, and then they go on to beg Paul to not go. They say, don't go to Jerusalem. We don't want to see you arrested. We don't want to see you in chains. We don't want to see you killed. Please don't go. But Paul goes anyways.
That's beautiful.
Do you guys know why he goes?
Because he's Paul.
Not because he's Paul, although that's sometimes an actual answer. Sometimes the right answer. No, because he'd already talked to God earlier, and God told him he was going to suffer for him, and Paul was like, okay, I'm ready. He also mixed in that original prophecy, the one that Paul received when he became a Christian. He said, not only are you going to suffer for me, I'm going to use you to preach to kings and governors. He's going to preach to royalty. And up to this point, it hasn't happened yet. So in his original prophecy that comes to him a few days after he becomes a believer, he's told, you're going to suffer for me and you're going to preach to royalty. And Paul's been a missionary for I think more than a decade by the time he comes back to Jerusalem. And he's never preached to royalty. And he has this lingering prophecy. You're going to preach to royalty. So he goes, he's captured, and no one can decide his case because he was arrested under false pretenses. He was arrested without a crime. And his accusers keep on laying these false charges on him again and again and again, and there's never any evidence, and they can never get a witness to speak in Paul's favor. Everyone's too afraid. Even the guys who are accusing him are hoping to assassinate him. They don't even care about the trial. They don't think they can actually convict him. They would like him to just die. But Paul is trusting in God as he goes to prison. And what happens? Well, last week we saw him preach to a ruler. And this week we're going to see him preach to 2 more rulers. And find an opportunity, although it won't happen for some years, to go preach to the emperor.
Now let's.
Ah, sorry. You can always read ahead. That's fine. But see, in that instance, God said, stand your ground. Don't run away. In these other instances, same guy, same circumstances, God actually did tell Paul to run away. There's one time where Paul's like lowered over the city walls in a basket and a rope to get away from being killed. But it wasn't because one time he's scared and one time he's brave. It's because one time God said, get out of here. And another time God said, I need you to go through this. And that was the difference maker. Not the fear or the courage, but just actually talking to God and saying, God, what's your plan in this? And there were times when God said, yeah, just run away. Ta-da! And then he lives. And there are other times where people like beat him to death, and God's like, I'm just gonna raise you back to life. Just get up, get up. And there are other times where God's like, oh yeah, they want to kill you, so I'm just gonna send in the guards, and they're gonna arrest you because it looks like you started a riot. And now you're in prison where no one can touch you. Ta-da! You're safe in chains. Ta-da! And so God has all these different plans he can use. He can use any one of them he feels like. It's up to us to just talk to him and see, like, okay, so which one today? Is today the run? Is today the get in the basket? Is today the I'm going to die? And maybe I'll live again, or maybe I won't. Is today you're going to arrest me for my own safety? Like, what is today, God? I don't know.
You never know.
What were you going to say, Alan?
Well, I never heard that he got raised from the dead before.
It is dubious to say it's for certain, so I won't say it's for certain, but here's how it goes. There's an instance that's recorded in Acts from Luke's perspective, because Luke writes the book of Acts, where Luke says that they beat him and it looked like he was dead. Then you fast forward into Paul's own writings, where he's writing letters to like the various churches, and in his own writings he says, and this is strange because he never does this, I once knew a man. He doesn't say who. It's the only time Paul ever writes of an unnamed person.
Wow.
It's the only time. He says, I once knew a man who was killed, beaten to death, and he went up and he saw a vision of heaven, and then he was told he wasn't allowed to reveal what was in the vision. And then God sent him back and raised him back to life. But what's weird about that is we have no other instance of anyone ever dying in Paul's presence. Certainly not being beat to death. The closest thing we have is that kid who falls out the window. He wasn't beaten to death, though. Yeah.
Wasn't he stoned?
Paul?
Yeah.
Was it stoning? I thought it was
I
beating.
thought he was stoned to death.
It might have been stoning.
And then like the next day he like calls him back into the same city to keep preaching.
Yeah, he keeps preaching.
To
That
the
part's
people that
absolutely
stoned him.
true. Yeah, so the question is, because he never owns it and just says, yeah, I died. The question is, did it look like he was dead enough that the people stoning him let him lie there? Or did God raise him back to life? I think God raised him back to life. I just don't want to ever put words in God's mouth. So like, I don't want to say he was absolutely dead and that's who Paul was talking about, for sure. But I am pretty sure, just me. I just don't think that the scripture is incredibly, obviously clear on that. But I think it's him. Yeah. Which is why I say it that way. I think Paul died and he rose back to life. So, that's all. Okay, we haven't read to verse 25 yet, so we got a little bit more to do. Okay, so verse 12. And again David asked, will the leaders of Keilah betray me and my men to Saul? And the Lord replied, yes, they will betray you. And this, I think, is one of the interesting things about God. He can't just tell the future. He can also tell you hypothetical futures. Isn't that interesting? That's not always really well talked about. Because usually when you talk to Christians about God telling the future, they talk about him being timeless and how he can just see the future and he's just in the past, he's in the present, he's in the future. So he can tell you in the past, he can tell you in the present what's going to happen in the future because he's already there. He already knows what's going to happen. If that was the only way God could tell the future, then he wouldn't be able to do this. Because David will leave the town. Spoilers. And they're not going to have a chance to turn him over. Do you get it? So they won't even have the chance to turn him over, yet God can answer the question, they will turn you over. Like, if you stay. So even in the hypotheticals, God knows the future, which is kind of cool. That's a neat superpower. Like, God knows even the future that won't happen. Interesting. I think that's necessary for someone who is God, who is all-knowing. I think if you're really all-knowing, you would have to know the hypotheticals too. And here's why. How would you properly plan if you couldn't tell what your changes to the plan would hypothetically do? Does that kind of make sense? Like, if your plans only were to adjust the future based on what you know is about to happen, then you'd be a highly reactionary God. You'd be reacting to all these things that are occurring, like, oh no, this happened, yeah, oh no, this is happening, and you keep changing things and hoping the future will come out better. That doesn't feel very godly to me. It doesn't feel very like all-knowing. That's a panicky, weird sort of God. So I think God has to know the hypotheticals so that he can accurately and properly say, I would like it to turn out this way. Here is what I will have to do. I will have to do this. And then he does it. And he knows it will turn out that way. It's a calm God. It's a God that absolutely knows the future. And on top of that, he can then accurately allow you to have free will and his plan come true. Because he's not waiting for you to make your choice before he can make his plan. He knows your choice before you make it. That's pretty cool. All right, verse 13. So David and his men, about 600 of them, so it's grown. Last chapter was 400, now it's 600. Left Keilah and began roaming the countryside. Word soon reached Saul that David had escaped. So he didn't go to Keilah after all. See that right there? The king doesn't even go to Keilah. Keilah never gets anywhere near betraying David. And yet, he knew they would. David now stayed in the strongholds of the wilderness and in the hill country of Ziph. Saul hunted him day after day, but God didn't let Saul find him. It's another one of the interesting shows of God's power that I don't think we fully understand. How could God, like I want you guys to actually answer this, how could God keep a king from finding a thing he's looking for?
He says you can't find it.
He's got superpowers, he's magical, he says you can't find it. Well, I mean literal hows. Like, okay, for instance, me, I'm not God. If I had a thing I didn't want Alan to be able to find, how would I keep Alan from finding it?
Hide it.
I would hide it, right? I'd just like stick it in my back pocket. I'd like lift up a ceiling tile and
Eat
like
it.
throw it in the ceiling. Like I would blend it up in a blender, turn it to dust. Like I have real physical options so that Alan cannot find this. Right? Okay, so I want you to give me those options. What are God's options that you can think of? How does God keep an entire stronghold filled with 600 men plus David hidden from King Saul?
There's a magical bush around.
A bush. He always looks in that direction, there's just a bush there.
Magic.
No matter where he looks from, there's always a bush in the way.
Exactly.
Okay, anything else? Yeah. A physical obstacle. I like this one. Like there's always a mountain between him and the stronghold. Every time he looks over, there's always some range of mountains in the way. I like that one. Yeah.
What was like the landscape of this area?
So let's see, we're in Ziph. So in this area,
It was like kind of.
Let me say it wrong.
yeah, so this is the uphill portion because you've got rivers going this way and rivers going that way. So like this would be the tallest, and then you come downhill. So this is like a main valley in here, and it's got water on either side. So I'd imagine this is kind of dry in the middle, something like that. So a little deserty, a little mountainous.
Sandstorm, possibly.
Sandstorm.
Something that would make it like actually
Sandstorm.
unable
Sand.
to cross.
What was that?
Sand.
Just sand.
Yeah.
Just
Quicksand.
Sandcastle.
sandcastle.
Exactly.
A
Sand.
huge
So
Sand.
every time Saul looks over, there's a kid playing with a sandcastle.
Exactly, but it's funny because it's like in the middle
Day
of the
3,
valley.
he's like, guys, why are there so many kids in this desert?
Exactly.
400
It doesn't make
kids all
sense.
making sandcastles.
Why isn't there a bush?
Did you have one,
Bush
Hannah?
in the sand.
Well, yeah, since he knows the future, he knows where they're gonna look.
That's true.
So he just like gives them strength to keep walking until they're past where they're gonna be looking, and then he tells them, okay, now it's time to rest.
That's
And then
interesting.
they-
I like that. He makes it so that they're not even looking when they could look. They're just
No,
they're
not
doing
like
something
David
else.
and his men. He like
And then there's a
he tells
bush.
them to rest when it's like the place they're not gonna look.
Right. Okay. He pauses them wherever Saul would naturally have skipped anyway.
Yes.
Okay, that makes good sense too. I like that.
Or like they're about to turn in the direction, and he's like, oh, Jew. Oh, I keep having to sneeze when I look right.
That's God's up in heaven with all the power in the
I'm
universe. He's
allergic
like,
to that bush.
tickle, tickle, tickle.
Oh, that's not good because you like.
Every time I look east, I get sneezing.
I can't look east, guys. I keep sneezing. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Oh, yeah, that'd be a
That's when you turn around.
glorious miracle, the miracle of sneezes.
Can't see to the right.
It's weird we never see that one with Jesus. Okay,
There's still time.
good stuff, guys. Okay, where did we leave off? God didn't let Saul find him. Okay, verse 15. One day near Horesh, David received the news that Saul was on his way to Ziph to search for him and kill him.
Oh.
Jonathan went to find David and encouraged him to stay strong in his faith in God. Oh, I forgot. Jonathan is in this one. Don't be afraid, Jonathan then reassured him. My father will never find you. You are going to be king of Israel, and I will be next to you, as my father Saul is well aware. Next to you. This is the prince of the country. And he so respects David. He's such a good friend to David. And he understands that God has chosen David. So the prince, who should be next in line to the throne, is so level-headed, so earnest, that he can just look at David in the eye and say, A, God is never going to let Saul kill you. And B, I want to stand next to you when you're king.
That's brave.
Which means he has no hopes of being like an in-between king. Does that make sense? He has no hopes of being like king interim before David takes the throne. He wants David to be king. Jonathan is a stand-up guy.
Well, also, Jonathan probably knows David would do a much better job.
He knows David would be an amazing king. The other thing to note here, Jonathan had no trouble finding David. Does that make sense? So David's hiding place is not a good hiding place because he's like hiding really good.
Wow.
His hiding place is really a good hiding place because God's making it a good hiding place, specifically from Saul and his men. So it's a total miracle because Jonathan walks out to Ziph. It's like, oh, hey, David. There's David.
Sorry,
Found
what are you
him.
doing behind that rock?
Wasn't very hard.
Why do you crouch?
Jonathan does it like that, no problem. Saul's searching and searching and searching, and nothing. Can't find a thing. So yeah, it's totally the hand of God. This is not normal, not just a good hiding place. So, verse 18, the two of them renewed their solemn pact before the Lord, which you can read about a couple chapters back. Then Jonathan returned home while David stayed at Horesh. Essentially, the pact was, no matter who gets power, you're going to protect the family of the man who doesn't get power. So currently Jonathan has some measure of power as prince. He's going to protect anyone close to David that he can. He's going to protect David's parents if he has to, David's brothers if he has to, David's wife if he has to, whatever. David is going to be king someday, and so David has also sworn the same pact. Jonathan, I'm going to protect your kids, your wife. I actually don't know how many wives Jonathan had. Probably just
That's a
one.
good thing to look up.
10 million.
I don't even know if it's recorded.
GPS. As my grandpa would say.
So they're both going to protect each other's families no matter what. Doesn't matter how it shakes out or how long it takes for either of them to get power. They're going to protect each other's families. That's the pact. Then Jonathan returned home while David stayed at Horesh. But now the men of Ziph went to Saul in Gibeah and betrayed David to him. So the people of Ziph can find David. They don't have any trouble. So they go to Saul. They're like, yeah, he's in Ziph. You missed him. He's right over there.
Genghis belongs.
So,
We know where David is hiding, they said. He is in the strongholds of Horesh on the hill of Hakilah, which is in the southern part of Jeshimon. They give the address, okay? Come down whenever you're ready, O king, and we'll catch him and hand him over to you. That's a big promise. If you think you can beat the Lord, then yeah, maybe you can take David. But if you don't realize you're fighting God, then you're biting off more than you can chew. The Lord bless you, Saul said. At last, someone is concerned about me. Remember this whole time, the paranoia of Saul? Is he thinks David is actively trying to assassinate him. There's never been a single attempt. David's never tried to assassinate him. He's been in the throne room alone with Saul, and what happened? Saul tried to kill David. Not David tried to kill Saul. David's never tried to kill Saul. He never said he wanted to kill Saul. He's never made any attempts, even in that direction. But Saul's paranoid, and he thinks everyone who's trying to kill David with him is clearly against him. So now he's like, oh, finally, someone wants to kill David with me. Go and check again to be sure of where he is staying and who has seen him there, for I know that he is very crafty. Discover his hiding places and come back when you are sure. Then I'll go with you. And if he is in the area at all, I'll track him down, even if I have to search every hiding place in Judah. So the men of Ziph returned home ahead of Saul. Meanwhile, David and his men had moved into the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah valley south of Jeshimon. So right after the people of Ziph go and rat him out to Saul, he just decides, yeah, I think it's time to move. Let's move, guys. So this probably isn't going to work out well for the guys in Ziph. Verse 25, when David heard that Saul and his men were searching for him, he went even farther into the wilderness to the great rock, and he remained there in the wilderness of Maon. But Saul kept after him in the wilderness. Okay, so he runs. He gets into Maon, sorry. And so that's just further south, further away from Gibeah, which is usually where we find Saul. Saul's usually camping out up here. So he goes even further south to hide from Saul.
How long did that take him?
Which part?
Like
Traveling all the way down?
Yeah.
On foot, because I've done the Nazareth, Bethlehem calculation enough times, I should have it memorized. It's a shorter distance. This is like half the distance of like Nazareth to Bethlehem. So I think that was like 72 hours. So this is like a day and a half of walking. Yeah.
What?
It's a lot of walking. They don't have cars. Like, what do you expect? You know, walking through 20 towns. Like, what? It's got to take a while.
12
Right?
minutes.
12 minutes. Yeah, 20
Oh,
towns, 12
easy.
minutes. Every town takes less than a minute. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's super
Exactly.
easy. Super easy.
Like Flash.
Yeah, Alan is like actually the Flash. That's
Yeah, basically.
he's admitting it.
Yeah.
Alan, your secret identity has been blown.
Identities right now.
All right, so last section here, verse 26. Saul and David were now at opposite sides of a mountain. So Saul is actually getting closer, but God's not going to let it happen. Just as Saul and his men began to close in on David and his men, an urgent message reached Saul that the Philistines were raiding Israel again. Can you kind of picture it? There's like actually one big rock, and Saul and David are on either side of it. They're playing hide and go seek, you know, that last minute after you've lost your hiding spot, and you and the seeker are doing this thing around the couch.
No.
You know what I'm talking about? You guys ever done this? Okay,
No.
around the pool table,
You
like
jump
whatever,
on
you know.
top of the couch.
You can see them, you know they're there, but you can't quite tag them. And right as Saul's about to get there, a messenger runs up. King Saul, come quick. The Philistines are murdering everyone. You gotta come beat them quick. So now it's the choice of Saul. Are you going to be the king, even a slightly good king, just a king by the barest measure of king, that you would actually go and protect your people from enemies? Or are you going to keep trying to track down this guy who everyone knows is not trying to kill you? What are you going to do, Saul? This is a big choice for him, because it means either you're going to keep following your crazy paranoid delusions, or you're going to do something that's real.
Delusions.
Let's see. Verse 28, so Saul quit chasing David and returned to fight the Philistines. Ever since that time, the place where David was camped has been called the Rock of Escape. David then went to live in the strongholds of En-Gedi, which is up here. So, David has been in so many places at this point, just in one chapter. And I mean, if you count all three, he's been all over Judah and Benjamin. He's been in so many places. There's different tribes, and they name their plots of land after the tribe names. And the tribe names come from people names, the original great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of each tribe. So Benjamin has a territory. It's also a people group. The tribe is called Benjamin. The people are called Benjamin. The land is called Benjamin. Same with Judah. Judah. And keep going, you know. Huh? I missed Judah?
Nobody.
All right, so Saul actually makes a good choice here. And this is good. This is good for Saul, because Saul isn't done yet. And I think because we can see that God is so strongly keeping David alive, keeping David from being caught by Saul, if Saul ever got to that point where he's about to just ram his spear straight through David, I think Saul would die.
Maybe.
Does that make sense? Like, if you're being prevented by God, if he's dead set, he's like, no, you're not going to do this. And you keep pushing at it. You keep saying, I want to, though. And God says, no, you're not going to do this. But you keep pushing at it, he's going to keep pushing back harder every time you try. Does that make sense? You keep pushing towards something that's awful, that's bad, that he doesn't want to happen. He's going to keep pushing back harder and harder and harder. It's going to start soft, because you're probably not pushing that hard yet. But if you keep going, how hard can God push? God can push pretty hard. So if Saul gets to that point where he is about to kill David, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe God would just bring David back to life. You know, like, hey, congratulations, Saul, you won. And then Saul leaves. And then God's like, okay, you can get up now. Maybe, but I think it's just as likely that God would find some way for Saul to slip and die. Like that weird little moment where you go to throw your spear and then your shoelaces are tied together, so you slip over, the handle hits the ground, and the spear goes through your own chest. You're just kind of like sitting there.
No.
How did this?
The casual thing that happens.
How did this happen? I feel like that's the kind of thing that would happen to Saul. But Saul is prevented, and he's prevented in probably the best way possible, because this is not just God saying, oh, whoops, a chasm in the ground opened up. I guess you can't get David today.
Yeah.
He's actually providing Saul with a good choice. Does that make sense? He's not just putting up a barricade this time. He's not just putting up a wall or a sandcastle or, mirage or a bush. He's giving Saul an out where he says, Saul, would you like to make a good choice today? I think that's beautiful, because that shows God is not purely escalating. He's not purely going to just go from a slight discipline to a larger discipline to a giant discipline to, okay, you're dead now. He actually has these other choices we don't always think of, where he can say, I'm going to try something completely different with you now. I'd like your heart to make a good choice. I'd like you to wake up for just 30 seconds and think about this soberly. Think about this properly. And it's so cool that he does it for Saul, because Saul is so undeserving at this point. He has not earned a second chance.
No.
But effectively, God gives him one. Now, why do I say God does? Well, because God orders everything.
Yeah.
God directs the big movements of the earth, and he uses those big movements in our individual lives. And so God could have prevented the Philistines from attacking. He's done it so many ways, so many times. God could have just not let the messenger make it in time. But instead, God orchestrates everything to the point where a messenger gets in the middle between David and Saul. And so Saul can't keep pursuing unless he says no to saving his own people. Yeah.
So if God could change all that, couldn't he also help him not have these thoughts that he's trying to kill him and stuff?
Absolutely. And I think what you're missing is the answer to that. Why is he doing it this way? Saul started out with God. Saul started out with a relationship with him where God and he were on speaking terms, and God was basically holding Saul's hand and guiding him forward. And Saul threw it away. Saul made that choice himself. He said, no, I don't want to listen. I don't want to wait. I don't want to be patient. I want to do it my way. I want to do what I want when I want. There's one point where the prophet of God says to Saul, Saul, you did good. You led the guys in battle. You won. Everything went great. Now we're going to go up and we're going to praise the Lord together. We're going to go and we're going to worship God, and we're going to thank him that your men didn't die and the battle was won easily and all this stuff. He says, go up there and wait for me. I'll be there in 1 week, and I will make a sacrifice, because only the priests were allowed to make sacrifices. It wasn't just the prophet saying, this time I'll do it. The prophet was saying, go up there and I'll meet you because you need me to make the sacrifice. So Saul's up there, he waits, and he waits, and he waits. But he was told to wait a week. Like, he knows it's going to be this many days, and on that day the prophet will arrive. So on the day the prophet's supposed to arrive, it's getting to be evening, and he just gives up waiting. And he just says, I'll do it myself. And he does something that was forbidden for anyone but a priest to do. And when the prophet arrives, he tries to backpedal and say, well, yeah, but you were late. And the prophet's like, the sun's not down yet. I said 7 days. It's the 7th day. What are you thinking? Why would you break God's law, go against what he and I told you to do? And basically, Saul just makes excuses. And from that point on, he keeps doing it. He keeps taking what God says to do and going, yeah, well, I'll do most of that. I'll sort of do that. I'll do it, but not all the way. And it keeps getting worse, and it keeps getting worse, to the point where God leaves him in a situation where he has to rely on David. So David, as a younger man before this, was a worship leader and a shepherd. And once David is anointed, he actually gains the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit resides with him. And so Saul is being afflicted by these demons after he's gone against the Lord. He's lost his connection to the Lord, and he's gone his own way. The demons start finding their way in, and they're trying to mess with him. And his friends, Saul's close advisors, say, what you need is a worship leader in here. That's what you need. And so David comes in, and David will play for Saul, and when David plays, the demons go away. And so Saul's put in this position by God where you can have relief. You can have your normalcy back. You can have a clear mind. But you have to be worshiping me, and then you can have it. So he's already abandoned God of his own free will, and now God puts him in a position where he can clearly see, when David's here, I'm okay. I'm sitting in the presence of worship even going on, and I'm okay. And what does he do? He turns against David. He decides, I want to kill David.
Why?
He was jealous. David was going to be the next king. He didn't know that, but he guessed it. David had the Holy Spirit. He didn't know that, but he kind of guessed it. David was liked by all the people because David wasn't a hothead who screamed at everyone. So Saul becomes jealous of David. Does that kind of make sense? So Saul slowly walked into this horrible, terrible situation on his own. And so you could ask the question, why doesn't God save him? God started him out in a better place. God chose him from being a nobody and made him the king. And God was with him 100%. Saul walked away from that. So the answer is, I think, for most of us, if we're suffering something that comes from not being close to God, and you ask the question, why is God allowing that to happen? The answer is, because you're continuing to choose to be far from him. If you turn around and you go back to God, you will not be in the situation that comes from you being far from him. Does that make sense? So God can save you from anything, but that doesn't mean he will save you from everything. You've actually got to go to him. And Saul's just refusing. This is the closest thing we've seen in a long time from him that would look like following God. But he hasn't talked to God. He's not praying. He's not making any meaningful attempt to worship God. At this point, the closest thing we see to following God is he's going to save his own people, which is good, but it's not the same thing as following God. He'd have to do a little more than just go save his people's lives if he's going to actually be following God. So, yeah, it's complicated, but at the same time, it's so simple. He just needs to repent. He just needs to turn back to God. And a lot of this would go away. But I know the end of the story. He's not gonna. He's gonna continue on this path. Okay, so to sum up, God makes a way.
He does.
God makes a way for David in this story. God's way prevents David from being caught. He prevents David from being killed. He prevents David from being betrayed by Keilah. But God also made a way for Saul. I hope you guys see that. I want you to understand, God doesn't just make a way for people who deserve it, because that's not any of us, as it turns out. God makes a way for people who don't deserve it, and to all degrees of don't deserve it. Like the person who you feel like maybe just barely doesn't deserve it, and the person who like, oh, well, they're as bad as Hitler, but they don't deserve it at all.
Oh.
God makes a way for everyone. But this is my point. Imagine, I know Hitler's like always the example, like the worst human who ever lived.
Literally.
What if God presented that handout of follow me to Hitler, and Hitler took it? You get what I mean? Like we joke sometimes, like yeah, Hitler would never follow God. Hitler, those evil people, those horrible people who murdered thousands, like they would never follow God. That's not really the point. How cool, how awesome, how good would it be if they quit their evil deeds and did follow God? If the evil just stopped.
But I mean, like, people would still want to kill Hitler.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But these are separate problems. The hatred towards the evil person and the evil person still perpetrating evil. Do you get it? Like two separate problems. Paul's a great example. Paul was getting Christians killed. He was a Christian hater before he was a Christian missionary. His salvation stopped one whole branch of persecution on the Christians. When he got saved, it stopped this whole branch of persecution. That was amazing. That was awesome. Did people still hate Paul for the bad things he'd done? Yeah. And that was a problem for Paul. Yeah. But the fact was, it saved a lot of Christian lives when Paul came to Christ. So I would say any evil person that we think of as like, they don't deserve it. I don't want to waste my time on them. They're so horrible. But how amazing would it be if they did? How many lives would be changed by that awful person coming to the Lord? Does that make sense? Like the king in the story, he is affecting every life in the entire country. If he would start following the Lord again, it would make a humongous difference in their country. Huge. And so yeah, God does make a way. He gives out these little, we sometimes call them olive branches. It's like a peace offering. It's like, yeah, okay, I know we fought, I know we've been at odds, but here we go. Let's start over. Let's go back to a good relationship.
Yes.
And God does this over and over and over again for us, and that's what he did through Jesus on the cross. Jesus dying in our place was so that he could show in a grand way, in a giant way, I am absolutely, no matter what, willing to make amends with you. I am willing to die to make amends with you. That is his message through the cross. That no matter what you've done, I'm willing. No matter how bad your past is, I'm willing. And so that's the olive branch out. It's the hand of acceptance out. Are you willing? Are you willing to change your life right here, right now? Are you willing to turn from your sin, repent, and follow me instead? That's what God says through Jesus on the cross. So yeah, God makes a way. The way is open to everyone now. But the way Jesus talks about it, it's like 2 paths down the road. There's a big fat road, super fast speed limits, all the convenience stores you could ever want,
It's gotta be
Dutch
Taco
Bros,
Bell.
everything.
I don't like that shirt.
It's okay, fine. Well, take your pick.
Bruh.
It's got everything on it.
What's wrong with you?
Giant road, super easy. Free rent-a-cars right at the start. Like, just makes it as easy as you possibly can. He says, right next to that is a windy road through the mountains, barely wide enough for 2 feet to stand on. And it just so happens they don't go to the same place. One of them goes to destruction and one of them goes to life. And so he says, that's it. When Jesus puts out his hand to you, he says, come follow me. He is saying, you can choose right now the hard path. It just so happens to go to the best place.
Yeah.
Or, you don't have to take my hand. You can take the easy road. It just so happens it goes to the worst place you can imagine. But it's a way easier road. And so that's what Jesus dying on the cross did. It opened the way. The gate was previously shut and now it's open. But you still have to pick it. Him dying on the cross doesn't just like auto-save everyone on the planet. You still actually have to walk down that road. You have to choose that. All right, let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your death on the cross, your sacrifice. We thank you that you were willing to do that for us. And we thank you, Lord, that you're willing to work in our lives right here, right now, like we saw with David, like we saw with Saul. That you're willing to get in the way of trouble, to be the barrier. That you were willing to make a way for survival, for peace. You were willing to make a way to give Saul that second chance. Lord, we ask that you would give us that second chance today. Whatever pig-headed, stubborn, dumb thing we're engaging in. Whatever thing that we have in our lives that we just can't seem to quit. Whatever sin we're pretending isn't that bad. Lord, give us that second chance. Hand us that better option today. And help us to have the courage to say, yeah, I'll take the better option. I'll save my life. I won't throw it away. I'll use it for you, Lord. Help us to make that choice this morning, Lord. To just put aside all those things we don't really need to be doing. With our heads bowed, with our eyes closed, if there's anyone here this morning who wants to make that change completely, you want to throw away that whole old life, everything you've been living for, all the selfish desires, and you want to have a brand new life with Jesus Christ today? A brand new life, one that's lived for him, for his purposes, one that is lived eternally, that will continue on in heaven when this one ends. And if you want to do that, Jesus offers to you his life. That's why he died on the cross. He did that in our place. Death was a punishment he didn't deserve, but we do. Our sin merits a death. And so he died a death he didn't deserve so that he could offer us a life we don't deserve. And if you want to put your faith in Jesus right now, trust in who he is and what he's done for you, he wants to give you that new life. Is there anyone this morning that wants to do that? Just raise up your hand and I'll pray with you. The hand won't change anything. It's not magic. Neither are the words in the prayer. It's really your faith in him that makes the difference. You can have a brand new life today. But I need you to raise your hand because I can't see your heart. Not the way God can. And so if that's something you want to do right now, I just got to know so I can help you out with the words. But you get to talk to him. You get to pray that prayer. You get to tell him you're trusting in him. You get to ask for his forgiveness. That's what he paid for on the cross. That's what the open door means. Anyone this morning? Just raise up your hand. All right, well, thank you, Lord, for these middle schoolers. Bless them as they go. Give them courage to take that second chance, to take that better option that you're handing them today. To look for the ways that you're presenting to them, to pray to you when they don't know what ways you're offering. We ask all that in your name, Jesus. Amen. I love you guys. Don't forget, topic nights are happening now. We just had our first one on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. We got to talk all about evolution and the Bible and history. It was super awesome. We got to ask tons of questions. This week, Wednesday, 4 o'clock, we'll serve dinner if you come. So come eat dinner with us. This week's dinner is pizza and donuts.
What?
You gotta have side dishes, right?
Wait,
So
hold on.
pizza is a
Question.
side of donut.
Do we have a limit of pieces of pizza?
Well, yeah, however many I buy.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't just make pizza out of thin air.
Is there anything interesting happening this Friday?
I don't know. Is there anything happening this Friday,
I swear, I
guys?
felt like Friday had nothing.
Friday
on
is
it
the
from
guys'
5 to
Nerf
10.
night.
That's not fair.
Be here at 5 o'clock. Yes, it is.
I
Be
know
here at
it's
5 o'clock.
stupid.
Guys' Nerf night, 5 o'clock, $5.
Melissa told me why you
This
guys
Friday.
wouldn't let all the guys and girls do it, but I would actually be good at working with the guys
It's
and
very
not
possible.
be stupid.
It's
I
very
would be the
possible.
only one who
Most girls say that though, and I've never seen it be true.
Hey, Kira, remember Mulan?
Alright, but anyways, the girls have Nerf night next month on July 7th. But yeah, this topic night is about dating and marriage. If you have any questions or opinions on dating and marriage, come to topic night. Sign up online. CCChico.com.
Oh, heck no.
We've got middle school.
I just
It's
want to
got
keep on
all
doing
of our
my
events right there.
Exactly.
Even camp, you can sign up
They're
for
a
camp.
better choice, honestly. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I know.
Alan always wins.
Me.
No.
Winner.
Alan.
I'm sorry. I don't know whose phones are whose, I promise.
Alan, you
I can
have,
barely remember your guys' names.
there's like a magnet on the bottom of the
my
barrel.
name?
Starts with a G.
Yeah.
Jar.
Wait.
You know what?
Geraldo.
Bubby,
Could you guys help put away some chairs?
Gertrude.
Bubby.
Oh, yes.
Bubby, I want something.
What?
Thank you.
I want
I thought we'd just leave our chairs out like
Okay,
all
wait.
summer, and then I realized they're doing minor construction and room reorganization in here.
Oh.
Like the shelves and stuff.
Is there anything like huge that's gonna happen over the summer? Like,
The air hockey table? Was the air hockey table? It's kind of broken. It's been a little broken for a little while, so I
It's-
don't care too much.
it's like a relic.
If it comes back fixed, everyone
The
will
place
love it.
is turning into like a museum. You just need to keep all the old stuff until it's like,
Yeah, I should
this
get rid of the
broke
Wii.
20 years
It
ago.
should just be retro only.
uh-huh.
Wait, show the video.
Oh. Yeah, do you guys want to see the Father's Day video?
Yes.
No.
I was in it.
You weren't in it.
Father's Day video.
I was in it.
Well, I my number was 12 bucket, so,
Wait, is this the thing?
Yes.
No!
Yes.
No!
Yes.
Daniel, stop it!
No.
All
Are
right,
you
question number
making a
one.
video of this?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, question number one. How old is your dad?
48.
He is 44. 45.
He's 36.
Like 37 or 6.
I don't know how old my dad. He passed away, so I'm not sure, but I think he was 56. I'm not sure.
What is something Dad always says to you?
I love you.
Go and grab me a Diet Coke. I love you.
He is always asking me like when I do activities, he's always asking me how it went and if I had a good time.
Do the dishes.
What did your dad and you do together?
I don't know. I spent a lot of time with him because my mom was mostly at work, so like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, but
Does that mean you did everything together?
basically, like, everything.
Play games and go on vacation.
Work out. Mountain bike.
We really like to listen to audiobooks.
Play video games.
How do you know your dad loves you?
He tells me. We do stuff together. He takes me racing.
He told me he's proud of me, and men don't usually do that to their sons unless they're really, really proud.
I could feel it. Like, it's just, yeah.
How is your dad a good father?
Because he loves me with all his heart, and he shows me the ways from right and wrong.
He takes care of us and always tries to do his best to be a good father.
He provides for us.
He's cool.
He can work for us and make good money and still find time to hang out with us.
About his money.
Gets it!
Wow,
Alright
you're out.
guys, if you go to the website and click on middle school, you can find a link to all of our upcoming events right here. This is also CCChico.com/MSCal. But no remembers that. So, go sign up for all the things!
Why would I not?
Sign up for all the things! You guys want to see something sad? You ready for this?
What?
There's like no guys.
Die soon, I swear. You literally did not put agent in it. I know you recorded it.
Kara! He never filled out the release.
I gave you one earlier.
He sent a release form to all the parents, so like his dad never filled it out.
That's an L. What do you mean? Oh, I thought that would just go there.
What? Oh, but you gotta sign up. I gotta let it come. I have to buy food. Thank you. Let me sign you up? Okay.
All for Micah. Because Micah is Father's Day. And you have a father, so you shouldn't be celebrating.
So wait, you?
So we have 7 up.
No, it blew my mind. You wear makeup? No, it blew my mind, honestly. How? What?
Almost everyone wears makeup.
Hey,
Only a little bit.
And she literally pointed it out. You're like, you're wearing makeup.
Elliot and Victoria, you guys gotta understand, most boys don't understand girls.
I can tell. I can tell.
He's got sisters, so there's like a little bit more he should understand. But not all boys
The
actually.
girl on the video did not make sense.
Well, a lot of the boys you know who have sisters, they have a younger sister. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Okay, how could you not understand that video? I